name is Anna Burkey, and I'm here to talk to you today about Australia Reads and championing a love of reading for pleasure in this country. What's working and what else might we need to think about? I work for the Australian Publishers Association, and I work really closely with the Libraries Association, the Society of Authors, and the booksellers. Together, we all believe that Australia reads, and we want to see more people reading more books more often. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Australia Reads is up to, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the recipe for different kinds of reading engagement and reading events and campaigns and programs. So I look forward to an opportunity to chat with you. You can subscribe to our newsletter, you can drop me an email and I'll send you all the details at the end. I hope that this can spark some conversation and some ideas, because we're all here for the love of books. Reading is powerful stuff. Whether that's a print book or an ebook or a comic or manga or an audiobook, it's all about absorbing the stories and the knowledge and the language. And of course, all of you watching know that. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. We work in this industry because we are passionate and knowledgeable and committed about getting the right story and the right knowledge into the hands of the right reader at the right time. We believe in books and reading, and we know for a fact that reading changes lives. We are not alone. If we think about just the books and publishing part of this world, the libraries, authors, illustrators, booksellers, and publishing teams, there are 30,000 staff. If we add in the educators and the school librarians, English teachers, and all those knowledge workers who really value the importance of reading in our professional lives, well, that is many thousands more. And there's a lot happening across the country. There are lots of fabulous campaigns. There is a lot of great knowledge, and there's a lot of great work where people are making a real impact in people's lives through a love of reading. However, are we a reading nation? Are we going to stay a reading nation? Or are we heading for a reading crisis? We know that the literacy stats maybe haven't moved very much. And we really know that support for reading hasn't grown. And in many ways, it's been eroded. The public funding through things like the Australia Council for Literature has substantially dropped. Tens of millions of dollars have been removed from the Australia Council budget. School libraries are under threat. Teachers have had an exhausting few years. All of this infrastructure that supports reading for pleasure, which in turn supports a way for us to know ourselves, to be imaginative, to be creative, to participate in society, all those things, they haven't had as much support as they could have. But there's more than 30,000 of us. So what happens if we work together to champion reading for pleasure? And how might we think a little bit differently about our messaging? Because we have been using the same kind of language pretty much for 20 years. And the world has changed in the last decade. As well as those reductions in funding, there has been enormous upheaval, social and technological change. Readers already have different expectations about how to read, how to share what they're reading, how to find a new read. And what about the non-readers? So much competition for attention. What is all this going to mean for reading for the next decade? Trends like the changes in our climate, changes in political system, shifts in the way the world communicates, those things are all things we need to keep an eye on, because they too will affect and change and give us opportunities to reach new kinds of readers and to reach existing readers in different ways. And what are we really after at the end of the day? We want more people to read more books more often. So Australia Reads is that mix of publishing and libraries and authors and booksellers, and there are dozens more partners from the community sector, from the Indigenous Literacy Foundation, from people working in aged care, from those working in shopping centres. There's a whole range of different kinds of players and partners that contribute to Australia Reads, where we're getting that national scale, national voice, national programme for reading. And you might know us best from the Australian Reading Hour, because Australia Reads was synonymous with the Australian Reading Hour. The Australian Reading Hour came out of the National Year of Reading in 2012, supported by ALIA. And the Reading Hour is staying around. It's been in September every year. We're moving it so that we can kick off the year together, take it out of the busy Christmas prep, exam period, book week, so much happening in that tail end of the year. Let's kick off the year with reading together. that flagship project absolutely coming back. We very much hope you can be part of it. It had in 2019, 300 events were held all across the country, which is an impressive number. I'd love to smash that for 2023. And last year, over 80,000 young people watched our digital program in conjunction with Sydney Opera House, with authors and illustrators coming live to the readers over a digital medium. So these kinds of events are coming back for next year. Subscribe to our mailing list and you can take part in them, but you can also register what you would like to be doing in your local community for the reading hour. It's about reading, but it's also about sharing. It's a social experience, how we love to talk about what we love to read and what we're enjoying the most. So read, share, enjoy with this year's Australian Reading Hour. But it's only part of the mix for Australia Reads. And our recipe is one of having those big campaigns, those big moments that draw attention, where all those voices are pulling in the same direction and that they're fun and engaging campaigns and community events. But that sense of sharing what works and what doesn't work, of professional knowledge, is also a critical part of this recipe. And working with partners, getting into other networks, getting to where people are who might not normally engage with the existing channels. They might not go to Goodreads, they might not go into a bookshop or a library or the school library. How do we reach those audiences with great books? So we want to engage existing readers, we want to get new audiences and communities on board, we want to share information as professionals, and we want to capture data about what really works. And we want to look at how we can work with health, with education, with family services, with aged care, to look at reading in daily life in other settings than the usual ones. What that means for Australia Reads, we're connecting for readers. We want to connect with new readers. We want to engage with existing readers. And for industry, we want to work through partnership and we want to share with one another with a loud voice. In practice, that means different kinds of reading campaigns and public events and event programs for those different types of readers. I don't like using the words reluctant readers, and maybe it's more of a non-reader or a reader who hasn't just been connected with something that sparks their interest and their love and that speaks to them. So what do those kind of campaigns look like? And then they'll look a bit different from the book campaigns for the word nerds. For those of us who are bookworms, who are already highly engaged, they'll need a different kind of program. We need to be sharing what works. So we need research, we need data, we need to understand people's reading patterns. What are people reading? What does Australia read? And we need to get into those new networks and advocate strongly for government, for support for reading engagement, and support for the infrastructure that supports and provides access to people. On a practical note, though, what does that mean? What are we doing? Well, from a project point of view, we've got the Australian Reading Hour. We're also developing a new book clubs hub where book clubs can come and speak and talk and share with one another. The Ambassadors program is already in play and we'll be putting some more love into that. It is an author database up there on the Australia Reads website. There's almost 350 authors, illustrators, creators, tagged by state, tagged by the country, the state that they work in, the age group that their work is aimed at. You could find a new creator who could bring fresh ideas into your environment. So there's a whole range of incredible Australia Reads Ambassador author creators in that program, and we'll be looking at how we can do more with them over the coming years. And we'll also be supporting partner campaigns. There's Love Your Library Day, Love Your Bookshop Day. There are so many great events that are already happening. How do we build on those and help them grow rather than necessarily reinventing the wheel and creating some new ones if we don't need them? And then there's that industry and professional side of things. We'll be launching a national reading symposium so that we can bring in thinking from advertising, from behavioral psychology, from design, from the digital sphere to help us think about how we're going to need to engage readers in the future. What are we going to need to learn, understand? How do we change our language to accommodate that? And how do we have that conversation together as professionals? Because there's lots for us to share, but there's lots for us to learn and look at how we put that in our practice. We'll be looking at national reading surveys and regularly seeing if we can put out trends and analysis of what's already being done, pulling together all the information about reading for pleasure and the impact of reading and trends on that might affect reading in the next few years so that there's a central place for that information and there's analysis of it and space to converse about it. And of course, we will be lobbying hard to look for more support in these industry projects. That's a bit of the structure and what Australia Reads aims to do and how we're going about it. Right there in the heart of it is all about what makes a great reading experience. And a lot of that is that, for some people, that is the solo experience, that is the escapism and the joy of being inside a story or gaining new knowledge, of reading new fiction, of having light bulb moments. It's also about telling someone and what are the different environments that we can use to help people share their experiences. And then how are we a little bit creative? How do we engage people? How do we get them to smile and get off the sofa and get involved with books and reading? So I've put together 6 themes for events and programs that I've found really effective in the past, with some ideas just to kind of spark the way we might be able to do things differently. We might be able to do them for the reading hour, but we might be able to do them in other ways in our lives. And theme number 1 is togetherness. Peers working together, seeing themselves reflected. I think there's work to do about ensuring that we're actually reflecting the Australian population, culture, social background. The reading culture doesn't always do that. How can we show people that they can see themselves, they can be part of an Australian reading culture and a literary nation, and they can have fun, they can do something at the same time as their peers. For people to know that something is happening all together, they're part of something that the entire nation is doing all at once, is a very, very powerful tool. So instead of the race that stops the nation, maybe we need the books that stop the nation, or at least just for the day, for the reading hour. We want to reflect, celebrate that reading experience, reflect all Australians, and we want to use any programs and events we do to gather insights. The more data we have about what people are reading, why, how they read, that's going to give us a lot of information to help us build more successful campaigns in the future. And let's make things local. Let's celebrate our local heroes. Can we tell the stories of the people who live in our community? Can we get them to share the books and the stories that they love? It's a great way of unpacking or bringing together a local community, but also understanding and illuminating someone else's reading experience. What about the guy who drives the school bus every day, or the woman that you see walking past the window at 9:20 every morning? What's her story? Who are those local people that everybody kind of has that awareness of? What's their story? And geotagging stories is really fun, getting a sense of what everyone is reading. This is from Book Week Scotland. I'd love to look at this for the Australian Reading Hour. What can you just plug in, what book you're reading, and where you are at that point in time, and anyone can go to the reading map and see. Maybe Tasmania is really into crime fiction. Perhaps Queensland's really reading romance at that point, and it's manga over in WA. It'll be lovely to see what Australia reads, and really good fun. Having reading in our daily life is so effective. Instead of expecting people to come to us into places like bookshops and libraries and school libraries, and learning environments, let's go to them. The gym, the takeaway. I've put bookmarks and flash fiction and poetry inside takeaway bags across an entire city before. The back of the toilet door, one of my absolute favorites, prime space there, fill it with poetry. We've got people's attention. Let's fill that with books and reading, and little snippets of creativity. And it doesn't have to be grand. It could be a trestle table, asking people to share the story, the book, the poem that they carry with them. People love doing this because they love to share what struck a chord. And you never know who you can get to share. Whether is the case here, a mix of librarians and journalists can help you spread the word much further as well. So simple can work really well. Visible, very important. How do we make literature much more visible in the world around us? I think there's been an interesting conversation about Book Week, with a fabulous Book Week over the course of the last couple of weeks. Whether you love the costumes or not, they certainly do a great sense of bringing alive and making really visible that something is happening to do with books and storytelling. So what does visible look like? I've run a project in the past that took years to get permission for, where we projected poetry onto Edinburgh Castle. This was the Edinburgh UNESCO City of Literature team. We felt very proud to get this moment after trying so hard for it. Look to the living, love them, and hold on. The poetry of Douglas Dunn, just a small excerpt of one of his works. On a cold night in February, and spontaneously a man stopped to propose to his girlfriend. We were doing it to celebrate Valentine's Day and to show that Edinburgh is a literary world and a literary culture, and to validate literature. And there's nothing like making it part of the fabric of your local space and making it visible for that to work. However, this wasn't actually that great an image to go on the front pages of newspapers and digital websites and channels around the world. So my pals Becky and John stepped in front of the projector, and this is the image that ended up on all the front pages on Valentine's Day 2011. Look to the living, love them, and hold on. And just to prove it was a projector, I tried to stick my hand in and show that it wasn't photoshopped. I think more than 10 years on, and Photoshop could probably handle something that complex these days. Projection doesn't have to be that expensive. It does rely on dark nights, which doesn't always suit every campaign or every time of year. But you don't have to go so fancy. Keeping it small. QR codes, everyone knows how those work. Chalk poems, chalk poetry, really good fun to start drawing, picking a favorite quote, picking a favorite author, have a lot of fun with a simple version of making literature and stories and books visible. And that drawing, it's great to bring in different art forms. If we work with readers about the things that they love and already enjoy and spend time on, like different kinds of art forms like drawing, then we enrich the storytelling process and the creation process. You also want to grab attention a little bit, so not suggesting this one for anyone who's working in a school, but working in a public library, we got henna tattoos on life models, certainly caused a stir. So you want that mix of getting attention along with the deep work of trying to connect a reader with a story, a book, a piece of flash fiction that is really going to speak to their heart and get them wanting to explore and read more for fun. And help people step inside the story. Audio plays, radio plays, twine games, loads of great storytelling games out there in the world. This project is from Subtle Mob, who are a sort of production company. They send you an audio file. You have to be within 5 minutes walk of a local landmark. You press play at 4 p.m. as the bell strikes on the church clock, and you're immersed into the story. You get given instructions, you're a character, you walk around, you have to pass people notes. You don't know if those other people are characters as well. Are they playing the game? Are they part of the story? Or was that a random commuter on their way home from work? You can meet up afterwards and talk about the story. So great ways to use multi-art form and playing with the sense of story. And short and memorable. You'll have heard me talk about flash fiction and poetry and bite size. These things work really well. They stick in people's minds. This very famous piece of flash fiction I'm sure you've seen before. It's incredibly powerful. And people can make your own bookmark, make your own pocket card for your wallet, take it with you and share it at some gorgeous location or just at the apple tree at the bottom of the garden. So there are lots of beautiful ways of sharing the stories that you love. So there's 6 programming ideas: togetherness, sense of place in our daily lives, make it visible, think about using different art forms and textures, and sometimes keep it short and sweet. If you want to have a play with your own reading logo, there's a widget on our website at Australia Reads. I certainly read and have my own little logo there. You can subscribe to our newsletter to find out more about how to take part, or you can just drop me a line and keep the conversation going. What do we need in this industry in order to help us share, in order to help us engage new readers? Do we need to take radically different approaches, or do we just need to surface what's there, or is it a little of both? Join us on our social channels, subscribe to our newsletter, or drop me a line by email. It has been an absolute pleasure to have this opportunity. Thank you for staying with me this long through the journey, and a huge thank you to the Literacy and Learning Symposium team for pulling this together and for pulling all these great organizations doing such fabulous work into one space.